Yo, guys, what is up? Welcome back to the Fuel for Growth podcast with myself, Niles, and Leonard. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about self sabotage. We're going to be doing a quick three-part podcast on self sabotage, understanding that self sabotage and understanding yourself, and then how to work your way out of that. But this podcast, we want to talk about self sabotage itself, some of the experiences that we've gone through, and hopefully experiences that you guys can relate to and apply to your own life. So, Leonard, my friend, how are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing real good, man. Glad to get into another episode. Last episode we had a really good talk, man. We covered a lot of things. That was definitely very spiritual and therapeutic for me. So I hope a lot of people got some help from that podcast and some understanding for a lot of things and some growth. So man, but I'm ready to have another one, man. Self sabotage is a good topic.
Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. I agree. Last conversation was really good, and so that was kind of just off the cuff, and so I'm really interested to see what we can dive into today. To start off,
Yeah.
man, I wanted to start us off with a story about self sabotage because this is something that I've experienced a lot recently myself. Actually, once I started working from home and for myself, I noticed immediately that I was like not sleeping right. All right. Something I used to always blame was my night shift. I used to always say that I don't sleep well because of my night shift. Right.
Yeah.
And then I stopped the night shift and I started working for myself. And I was still like not really going to bed when I should go to bed, and I was having like these days where I'd just stay up to stupid hour. Um, and not only that, I'd spend a lot of time like not even working during those hours. I'd just be like watching YouTube videos and all this. And I remember one night I was sitting in my chair. I looked at the clock. It's like 2 a.m. And I'm like, oh, geez. I'm like, why am I still awake? And I'm sat here just scrolling through these shorts. And I just caught myself looking at like these shorts. And I was thinking to myself, like, what am I actually gaining from this? Like why am I doing this? Because I'm in a position where I'm actually kind of struggling right now. Like I've just quit my job. I'm like working for myself now. Like I've really got to commit to what I'm doing because if I don't, then I'm gonna be like screwed, right? I'm gonna have like serious trouble. And so I
Yeah.
was looking, I'm like, why am I sat here at 2 a.m. watching YouTube shorts? What am I doing? And it was like self sabotage, right? Like I was watching all these shorts and I like didn't even know why I was watching them, And I just thought that that was a really interesting thing. I was like, why am I doing this? And so, I don't know if that's something you've ever experienced, brother.
Yeah, yeah. For me, especially with us being in the content creator world a little bit, you got to kind of find that balance because you got to do absorb so much content to see what other people has been doing, see what works and all that. But then you got to find that very thin line in between of, am I watching reels? Am I watching content to study content, or am I watching content to distract myself and just do to not do what I need to be doing? And I'm using this excuse like, oh, because bro, you could scroll and scroll for hours and just be right past and be like, damn, I didn't get shit done today. I've just been scrolling TikTok and Facebook and YouTube Shorts. Like, man, what have I done? So if you're a content creator, you got to find that balance between, all right, I'm studying other content creators for ideas and figuring out, am I just doing this to procrastinate on everything else I need to be doing? And I'm using this as an excuse. So you got to find that very thin line between it, because a lot of people will just sit there and waste the whole day scrolling through content that's not actually valuable, that's actually not bringing something to you. And not every piece of content you dice or absorb has to be strictly knowledge or stuff. Like we all know, like sometimes you need to go get a laugh, get re-energized for the day, and then go back. But don't let that consume your whole day so bad that you're not actually able to do what you need to
Yeah.
be doing throughout the day.
Yeah, I mean, I remember listening to a study on like dopamine, right, and dopamine receptors. And what I found really interesting about this study is the fact that they talked about the fact when you have dopamine hitting like your dopamine receptors all the time, what happens is it's not that you get less dopamine from things, it's that your receptor becomes numb to dopamine, right? So it's like you're still getting the same amount of dopamine, but your receptors become numb to it. And
Yeah.
so it's why it's so important, like you just said there. Like, there's no problem with consuming a bit of content for a laugh. Like, I love watching this guy called the Racco TV make some hilarious videos, bro. Like, really, really funny videos. He's from the UK. I think he's a funny guy, and I love watching his videos for a bit of entertainment here and there. But it's here and there. You know what I mean? It's like it's not like all the time like consume, like becoming this crazy like just dopamine filled person. And then the
Yeah.
problem is like I say, you become numb to it. And so it doesn't even become enjoyable anymore. And I think the worst part about that, especially when it comes to working, is that when your receptors are numb, when you're working, you get zero dopamine, like, or zero dopamine feel, sorry. And so you're so numb to the dopamine that it doesn't even feel good to work anymore. And
Yeah.
like when you're doing the work, you don't even feel a sense of achievement after you've done it. And I think that's a huge proponent of like perpetuating that cycle of self sabotage, because once you're numb to it, it's like you don't even want to do the work anymore because it doesn't even feel good to do it.
Yeah, yeah, because it's like you got to figure out your why you're doing things, right? Or else that dopamine hit ain't gonna last long. So a lot of people are just, sitting there indulging because they're getting that hit from content, and that's very momentarily. But then on bad days that they have to go push through something, they're like, man, I need extra motivation. I need this because, like to your point, in the military, we have generators and we have pieces of equipment, and during really cold weather, they're hard to get started. So they have ether already in them. But you press
Yeah,
the button, ether, and it starts the engine. But they tell you, don't use the ether on the machines unless you absolutely have to. Because once
yeah.
you use it once, this machine's going to want it to start every single time after that. And that's kind of like to your point. It's like once you start being focused on those hits of and everything and that chemical release, you start to realize that I can't do this on my own. I'm becoming reliant on this rather than I'm using this to re-energize me to do what I need to do. I'm using this as a crutch to help me do what I need to do, and it's not a good way to start things off.
No, I absolutely, man, and I think that's exactly it. Is like, once, like you say, that analogy is perfect for it. Once you start using that to get you going, you use it more, but it also consumes more time as well, right? Because you need more of it to even get that same motivation, that same push from it.
Correct. Yeah.
Like there was a video that I absolutely loved. It was his speech from somebody, and it had like the music on it was perfect and everything. I love this video. Like I used to listen to it all the time. And one day I opened it up and I started playing it, and I was just like this didn't even affect me. I didn't even feel it at all. And I was just like, damn, like everything really can be like overdone. Like
Yeah.
even when at first you sit there and you think to yourself, nah, this can't be overdone. Like I can do this as much. Nah, man, like it can be. Um, and so again, I think people have to understand that like you're gonna sabotage yourself at times, right? Self
Yeah.
sabotage isn't just like you blow up a really good opportunity. Self sabotage is things like consuming content when you shouldn't be, or relying on like motivational videos to get you going. Like um a crutch is like smoking weed, right? I know a lot of people, and I think we've all been there, a bit of weed every now and then to help, like, get the juices going, or like just help relax and things like this. And it's like you got to be so careful it doesn't become a crutch, though. Like we say, like everything in moderation. Like I won't sit here and tell somebody and say to them, hey, you shouldn't do that at all, because it's like I don't know if that is the right move. But I also believe that you've got to be careful about the crutch of it. It's like, do you rely on it, right?
Yes. And I think that's just with anything, yo. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, if you don't use anything responsibly, it can become a crutch rather than a tool. And you got to learn how to make sure that you use things with moderations to be a tool. Because I'm a weed smoker. I'm an advocate weed smoker, and I smoke daily and everything, but I have it to a point to where it's not making me less productive. It's actually making me more productive. I have bad anxiety. I have bad high motors. I have where situations will bring back bad PTSD memories, and weed will actually give me the sense of where I can go out into the public and deal with people without having an anxiety attack if it's more than 20 people around me. I can go and get my work done without the day without wanting to lock myself in a room and stay a cage. But some people go do that and they get the opposite. They go smoke weed, they sit in bed all day, they go sleep, they go. That's not the way of you need to handle it. Learn how that attacks your body and use it as a tool, not as a crutch, because it can be used as a tool, and anything can be used as a tool if you know how to use it right. But make sure that you're using things to help your growth, not stump your growth. And when you're using something as a crutch, it's stumping your growth.
Yeah, exactly, man. A prime example, right? I remember somebody said this back in the days when I used to trade, right? Because I think if you're ever a trader, anybody out there ever does trading, it's like you understand that the biggest thing in trading is sabotage, is basically doing things that you're not supposed to do, doing things that are outside of your strategy, right? And all of it is self-inflicted. And so something that they always say about trading is that, especially when it comes to things like leverage, a lot of companies offer leverage trades, right? And most people will start using leverage when they don't understand what leverage even is. And the problem with that is that it's like using a chainsaw to chop down a tree when you have zero idea how to cut down a tree or how to use a chainsaw. You know what I mean? You're going to chop your arm off, right?
Yeah.
And so this trader who said that, that's always stuck with me, is because it applies to everything. There's a lot of tools out there which, if used incorrectly or not used in moderation, they will absolutely just destroy you, right? And they'll really become like a massive crutch to you. And so, I mentioned, like I say, the grass, because that's one of like the biggest ones for a lot
Yeah.
of people out there. You know what I mean? I know so many people who are like, who say what you say, but they actually don't use it as a tool, right? Like that's the thing. There's a lot of people out there who say the same thing. Will be like, oh well, it's this, but when you look at their life, you're like, brother, you are, you know what I mean? Like it's not the same. It's not the
Yeah.
same, man.
Because I think Tristan Tate put it in a good way, because he has a very good rant on weed and about like not smoking it. And I agree with it, because there are a lot of people that don't understand, use it as a proper tool, and they use it as a crutch. And he's like, some people just sit there, smoke all day because it's like, okay, it makes me feel better about my crappy life. It gives me an excuse
Mm,
why I didn't get nothing done today. Not like you're starting to use it as a crutch to not be getting anything done. And Tristan had a really good take on that. And I was like, bro, that's facts. But if you can learn how to moderate it and do it. But a lot of people don't have self-control. They don't have the ability to moderate something. They just know, hey, this
yeah,
is giving me happiness for a little bit. I want this all the time. And it's like, no, you still got to go get things done. If you do smoke all day, every day, and don't do nothing else, it's going to slow you down. It's going to slow down your thought process. There's even times where, I've gotten to like, man, I used to smoke before these podcasts all the time. Now I've not smoked in front of these, so I can be a little bit more sharper and quicker with certain
yeah,
things. But it's just understanding when you're doing self sabotage, whether it's in that situation or anything. And like you said earlier, and I got a list here, self sabotage can look like in so many different ways. So it can be, rejecting praise and compliments, not asking for
mm,
help, pushing people away when they start to get too close, opening up and attaching to others prematurely. I do that one a lot too.
mm,
Refusing to do something unless you can do it perfectly, procrastination on important projects, putting everyone else's needs before your own, constantly criticizing yourself, isolating when you are hurting. And there's even
yeah,
more and more and more of those things that are self-sabotage. And
yeah,
that's something you can see a lot of times. Like you can give somebody a compliment and they don't know how to take it. And you're like, all right, hey, come on, just take it.
yeah,
Just thank you, appreciate it. I know you're probably not used to that, but learn how to take the compliment, and that's
yeah,
something else I had to learn over the years too. Because I'm like, yeah, but if you knew this about me, then you probably wouldn't say that. Or if I would get so distanced, like, okay, you like this version of me, but if you knew fully me, you knew all of me, you'd probably run away like everybody else will. So I'm not going to give you that chance to do that, because it kind of gives you, when you self sabotage, it gives you that point of the false hope of control, because you think,
mm,
well, okay, well, we had a relationship. They're going to leave at some point in time, whether it's, man and woman or friendship or family. Like they're going to leave at some point. So let me go ahead and sabotage this, and at least I controlled it. It ended
yeah,
on
yeah,
my terms. So it gives you that false hope of like, I have control over this, when you really don't have no control over it. You're just sabotaging
yeah.
something and not even letting it see what it truly could be.
Yeah, I mean, I look at like the stoic ways of life. Like the only thing you can really control is your reaction to things, right? You can't actually control what happens physically. You can only control the way you react to it, And I think that is probably a big piece of it. Is that, like you say, a lot of people will blow something up, a relationship or whatever, because they're so scared of what could be, and they're so scared of things going wrong that they'll blow it up themselves. And I think I would argue that probably most guys who have ever had a relationship have probably at some point tried to sabotage their own relationship, which is it's a honestly it's so strange, but people can do it in so many ways, right? An argument over something petty, and instead of just sitting there and being like, you know what, I'm wrong, you're right, you know what I mean, instead of just being like, you know what, this is petty, I need to stop, even if you are actually right or you think that you're right, just sitting there and being like, this isn't worth the argument. Like a lot of people though will sabotage their whole relationship because of this one petty thing, and I'm always like, why you do why you know? Um, and there's all sorts of different ways. Like you say, a big one is like anxiety. When anybody has anxiety, I notice this myself, is that a lot of people will do one of two things when they have anxiety. They will either push everybody away because they're afraid of losing them, right? Which is just essentially going to make them lose them anyway. But like you say,
Yep.
it's in their control. Or the second one is that they will attach themselves to everybody they meet immediately and then end up being hurt, kind of thing. And usually the first comes before the second, right? Sorry,
Yeah.
the second one comes before the first one. So usually people attach themselves over and over again when they have anxiety, and then eventually they start learning that, hey, guess what? These people are going to end up hurting you if you do that. And then what they do is they go at the complete opposite end, right? And so they
Yeah.
just push away from everybody, which is like the wrong way of doing it as well. Because again, it's about that balance, right? That yin and yang. As we spoke about in the past about the boundaries podcast, I think that's a prime example of what you need to do when you're in that position of a relationship.
Yeah. So and like to that point, I can't. Oh man, I got to do better at remembering these people's names. But he came out and he had something, and he was like, anxiety is usually led by the expectations you have on others, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yep.
usually you have expectations on other what you're wanting them to do, and then that leads to you being anxious and having anxiety in certain moments. But you need to replace expectations with optimistic and opportunity. Right.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't, I'm not expecting this, but this is an opportunity where something could come. Because he was like, what is the point, or what is the odds of everybody doing what you think that they should be doing all the time? Zero,
Mm-hmm.
right? What's the odds of you doing what you think you should be doing 100% of the time? Zero, right? So why are you going to go ahead and put expectations on people when you know most of the time they're not going to lead up to those expectations?
Mm-hmm.
They are going to fail at them, and then you're going to have these high expectations of something rather than just be given the opportunity, be present in the moment, and letting it be what it actually is, rather than putting expectations on it. So when it don't be what you was hoping it would be, it's done skewed your whole view of what that relationship or what that situation is now, because you put expectations on it rather than just opportunity and optimistic about what this could possibly be, what this could possibly grow into, and just let it have a life of its own.
Yeah. And you know what it is like? I absolutely agree with that statement. The fact that it's people's expectations of others, right? We've spoke about this a lot of times, and we will continue to beat this horse because, what's I say, beat a dead horse, right? We will
Mm-hmm.
continue to beat it up about it because it's so true. Like, stop expecting things from people. Expect a spade to be a spade, right? Like just don't expect anything more, anything less of people. Instead, just see them for how they are and just experience that with them, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
that allows for better relationships with people as well. I stopped looking for approval from my mother, right? I used to always kind of want approval from my mum or my dad on what I was doing. I stopped caring about that stuff. You know what I mean? I stopped caring
Yeah.
about their approval on things. I just started doing it. And I used to just think to myself, at the end of the day, if I expect their approval to be positive and it's not, that's going to really upset me. If I expect their approval to be negative and it is positive, that's fantastic. But then I've spent all this time expecting it to be negative, not having that conversation with them, and I've just wasted all this time, right? And so
Yeah.
ultimately, if I just expect nothing and just do my own thing and then allow them to react to it instead, then that's way better. I heard this quote once, and I believe it was from Tim Ferriss. He said, and it doesn't apply to everything in life, but majority of the time, you should do things first, and then if it's wrong, or if somebody is upset by it, or if you end up doing something that basically, like, let's say your boss disapproves of it, right? You do something, your boss then disapproves of it. Okay, you do something in a company, I don't know, you change up a system to work more efficiently, and your boss goes, I don't approve of that. It's better to ask for an apology than ask for permission. And the idea is that if you went to your boss firsthand and went, hey, I've got this idea to change up this system and everything, he would have said no, right? Or he would have been like, come back to me later. He would have been too busy to talk to you about it. Whereas by just doing it firsthand, there's a massive opportunity there that he then sees it and goes, oh my goodness, this is a fantastic idea. What a brilliant, brilliant idea. And he goes along with it. Or the worst thing that's going to happen, he says, why have you changed that? Change it back. And you go, oh, okay, sorry. And it's like, it's not that, you know what I mean? It's not that bad. So it's like the same kind of idea in like certain relationships, right? It's like when your mother is like, you're constantly asking for her approval, or you're asking for the approval of your friend, or to do certain things. It's like, instead of asking for permission, just do them. And then if they're like, hey, I don't think that was the right move, or I didn't approve of that, you can say, all right, you know what, sorry about that then. But if it worked out really well, the likelihood is they're not going to say I didn't approve of that. They're going to be like, "Oh, you did what? You made what money?" Like, you know.
Yeah,
So
exactly. It's like that for chasing your dreams. And Gary Vee says something to that too, and I'm gonna touch on it as well. But it's it's knowing that sometimes people can't see the dreams and see the vision that you have, no matter how hard you explain it to them. Sometimes you have to show them the progress and the work, bro. Because I
mm,
promise you, when I told people, "Hey, I'm going to make content full time, and my goal is that one day I'll be able to quit my job and make money from my reaction videos full time," nobody thought that was possible. Everybody
yeah,
laughed at me. It's like, yeah, good luck with that, bro. Keep dreaming. Go ahead. And
yeah,
then within a matter of months, I was able to do it. Like nobody was excited for that. And then even when it did start taking off, I start talking to people like, hey, this is taking off. This is this and that, thinking that there's going to be prideful with me. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. And then right back onto the conversation. They didn't really care about it.
yeah,
And it was like it slowly started to realize I got to do this shit for me. I can't do it for them because they're still not happy because there's still some animosity. And Gary Vee was
yeah,
like, he said, don't worry about what other people say about what you're doing. Don't let that affect you. Why would you get so upset about what somebody is saying in the benches when you're playing the game on the field? Why would I be concerned about what somebody's saying is in the benches that don't ever play the field? And he said,
mhm,
even if it is your mom and your dad saying, hey, I don't like this, you shouldn't do this, then say, hey, mom and dad, respectfully so, if you don't think this is the way, go show me the way. Go do something that shows me that this is better than the way I'm trying to,
I
or
like that.
otherwise
Yeah,
I'm going to go do this anyway. So don't tell me this ain't going to work or I can't do this or this ain't going to be productive when you haven't first either tried it or shown me another route to do what I'm trying to do and accomplish it. You just can't tell me, hey, you're going to
yeah,
fail and have no other side to show me.
dude, I love that so much. That's so true. Show me a better way. No, that is by far the best thing any beginner entrepreneur out there. Use that right there. That is so good. Show me the way instead. So,
Mm-hmm.
kind of bringing it back on topic anyway about the self sabotage. I think this all ties in though, at the end of the day with relationships. Like I say, I think a lot of people will stop what they're doing because they don't have approval of certain people, and they don't know how to react to that, right? And so, like you said right there, tell them like, show me the way instead. But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, like I say, don't stop worrying so much about someone else's permission for you to do something. It's your life. Now you have to live with the consequences both
Mm-hmm.
ways, right? If they don't approve of it and you don't do it, you live with the consequences of that action. If you don't seek their approval and permission and you do it anyway, you also have to live with the consequences of that action. Now, some consequences can be good, some consequences can be bad. But at the end of the day, you're better off doing it for you instead of sabotaging yourself and doing it for other people. Like I think again, like you say, self-sabotage encompasses so much more than just like, oh, I woke up and instead of doing work, I did, something that I wasn't supposed to do. It includes, like we say, seeking approval of others, doing things where it's like you're trying to stop yourself from being great because of the thoughts of somebody else.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the good point to it because, and I tell people all the time this too is that everything was impossible until somebody went and made it possible. So just
Yeah.
because somebody can't see your vision, they don't know how you're going to get it done or anything like that, don't mean it's not going to get done. I'm pretty sure when the Wright brothers was trying to figure out how to fly, I'm pretty sure nobody was like, "Yeah, bro, you definitely you got this." Like, dude, what are you doing? Leave it to the
You're
birds.
you're
Stick,
crazy, bro.
stay
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, when Tesla was coming up with Warrenclyffe Tower, and he's like, "Hey, we're going to be able to send pictures and messages through airwaves and this and that." People thought he was a witch and doing sorcery. They wasn't
Yeah,
supportive. They didn't understand it, but here we are doing it.
yeah,
Sometimes the overall vision ain't for people to get at the beginning steps of your at the early stages of your process.
yeah,
Sometimes it's for you to put your head down, grind, put in the work, and show people this
yeah,
is possible. This can be accomplished because anybody can say it. We see that all the time. People, we just said it ourselves. If you say that you can do something better, go show me, right?
yeah,
So don't just say, hey, I can go do this. This is the dream I want to do. Go live that dream. Go attack it. Go take the steps to actually put the work in to accomplish what you want to accomplish. So they're not just words and people's
yeah,
like, okay, you went and did this. This is how I can do it too. And they start taking you seriously that way.
yeah, yeah. I tell you what, as well, something really, really important is do not sabotage yourself by constantly jumping from ship to ship. I've been there, right? I think everybody's been there at some point. And don't get me wrong, I believe in searching for what you care about to some degree. I don't believe in the whole thing of like chase your passions. Obviously, Some people out there say like, doesn't matter what your passion is, make money instead.
Money. Yep.
And to some degree, maybe that works for you. But I always believe, especially for somebody like me and the personality I have, I've got to be somewhat passionate or caring about what I'm doing, right? I have to have some degree of my heart in it. Now, it doesn't have to be all the way in, but it has to be at least half in, right? And so my point is that don't jump ship to ship when you haven't even tried, right? When you haven't even tried to make something work. But at the same time, I understand that you might want to jump ship because you might be like, this is really not for me. Like my heart's not in it. But make sure that it's because your heart's not in it, not because of the fact that you sat there going, well, this is actually harder than I thought it was. It's like, yeah, of course it's going to be harder than you thought it was. Don't then sabotage yourself and make it worse, right? Again, I think I, and again, another thing that I'll always beat up, self-awareness, right? The more self-aware you are, the more you can recognize when you're sabotaging yourself instead of doing something to try and better yourself. You know, a huge example, a quick brief story, right? I was trying to get into drop shipping, and I thought, like I'm gonna get into all this and the advertising side of things, and I was like trying to find the right product and everything, and went to the website, and I was like, I love the creative side of it. The creative side, I was absolutely loved it to pieces, but the rest of it, I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like I have zero idea. Finding a product, all that stuff, no idea. And so I
And it's
ended
a
up
ton of work too.
right, exactly. It's super difficult. Again, iceberg. Underneath there was all this other stuff, and
Yep.
I was like, you know, I just don't want to do this. But then I thought to myself, well, hold on, have I even tried yet? Before I even quit, I asked myself, have I even tried yet? And I was like, well, not really. So I went a bit harder at it for about 2 months. I went really hard at it, and I ended up getting no results. And my heart still wasn't in it, and I was still like, nah. And at that point, that was when I switched directions. But the point is within that story, it's proof that it's like, ask yourself first, have you tried yet? Have you even tried? Or are you just kind of like, well, I put my foot in and I was a bit scared, and so I took it back out. It's like, no. Put your whole body in, man. Like dive headfirst into that pool, right? And just see, see if you can figure it out. And if not, then maybe come back up and say, all right, I'm getting out. I'm getting out. You know what I mean? Like this isn't for me, right? But go head first.
Yeah, exactly, bro. And that's good self awareness right there to understand. All right, have I truly gave it my all? Is this truly something I want to do? Like you got to be honest with yourself. Like we've talked
Yeah,
about that several times. You just got to be honest with yourself at the end of the day, and that's what's going to be the key that opens up the gates to everything for you in the future. And kind of to that too, to the self sabotage and self awareness. I heard this quote the other day, and it was Charlemagne the God from the Breakfast Club. He was on there, and he said this quote, and I'm not sure where he got it from, but that's who I heard it from. He said, "Healing can be hard when your inner child wants love, your teenage self wants revenge, and your current self only wants peace." And
mm-hmm.
that's some things for us right there, is that the sabotage is so bad on ourselves that we're not realizing that the trauma from our younger past, the resentment from our teenage years is battling with the peace and the stability we're wanting now, and we don't understand why we're self-sabotaging, because we still have all that stuff and all that trauma and all that stuff from the past that we still ain't addressed or even acknowledged, that is still hindering us to grow in the future, and then is doing self-sabotage. I can't get close to certain people because I'm afraid they're going to leave like people did in the past. I can't trust people with certain information because then they might burn that bridge with me, then go off and you can go tell all the stuff with me. So it's just understanding that who you are, understanding that, okay, if I am broken, if I have something going on, how do I fix this? What is the root cause of that? And do it. Like, just be self-aware, like
Yeah,
you said, to know what's going on so you can fix yourself, or otherwise you're going to be self-sabotaging constantly without you even noticing it till you're too late. And you're like, damn, I pushed them away when they really wanted to be with me. And somebody said that it was self-sabotage. Sometimes it's because we're so used to the toxic behavior, people coming around, that they're not going to be no good for us. They're going to use us. They're going to manipulate us. That when somebody actually does come around that's good, our body don't realize that the unfamiliar thing is the good thing. So we push that away, and then we self-sabotage the thing that's been familiar,
yeah.
but the familiar thing is the toxic thing.
You know what? One simple question, brother. One simple question. Am I worthy? That's it. It's am I worthy? Right? Every single I guarantee you, people, especially who have been through a toxic relationship, who have sabotage their relationships, their success, their career, whatever, it comes down to a simple question that they've probably gone through in their head, which is, am I really worthy of this? And most people's answer is no, because their self-esteem is crushed, and it's crushed maybe from life experience, maybe it's being crushed by somebody else, maybe it was something in your childhood that happened, but your self-esteem has been crushed by something, and you don't believe that you're worthy of it. I look at like relationships, brother. I look at back at one of my relationships now. Again, I'm quite particular. I don't like to air too much on the internet,
Yeah.
but I'll try and give this as much detail as possible. I was in a relationship where I initially got into the relationship when I just gone through a bit of a weird moment in my life. I've always tried my absolute best to stay above the ground, stay above the water in terms of like doing bad stuff, hedonistic stuff, as in like partying, drinking, all that kind of stuff. Now, I'm an imperfect human being. Obviously, there's been moments where I have, but most of the time I've stayed away from partying and that, that real hedonistic stuff. But the week before, I'd partied, right? And I'd partied with a bunch of people, and I was feeling really lonely because during that party, we went around this person's house, and there was this girl, and she, and we got on all right. And I went back home, and my home was 280 miles away from where I was partying with all these people that I knew. And so I'd gone back to my home because I was living down south at the time, and I was like, man, I'm really alone. And so my self worth, my self esteem had been crushed, right? And it had been crushed by this partying that I've been doing, because obviously when you're partying, it feels all good at the time, but afterwards your energy saps, right? You're really out of it. And so what was really crazy is that I ended up meeting another girl, just literally just on an outing, with some friends that I had down south, and I was just chilling with them. Like, it wasn't like I was partying with them or anything like that. And I just met them on an outing, and I met this girl, and I thought, wow, she is like a really nice girl and everything. And so I went on a date with her, and I went on another date, and we started dating properly. And what ended up happening is our relationship got really toxic and really bad. And it was because I was like, my self esteem, my self worth was so crushed that I couldn't spend time with myself at the time. So I always had to be around somebody. And the problem is that obviously I then attach myself to her, right? Because it's like, when I'm around you, I feel worthy of, of love and care and whatever, right? And it just wasn't the case. Like, it wasn't truth. But it was because my self esteem was crushed. I didn't believe I was worthy. And so we ended up in this really toxic relationship. And when she broke up with me, bro, it crushed me. It crushed me even further because I'd attached my self worth to her. And so it took me a while to recover from that. But that is by far the biggest piece of sabotage, especially when it comes to relationships, is people don't think that they're worthy of it.
Yeah, bro, and to that situation too is like you got to go in there and know your personal identity too, and your situation, and it works in both ways. Some people go in there and have identity, and then get in a relationship and lose their identity. Some people go into the relationship and hoping that they're going to find an identity into the relationship.
Yeah.
And I was that second part too a lot of times, right? Because bro, we're men. We don't
Yeah.
get affection. We don't get love. We don't get care. We don't get none of that. The only time we get any form of affection or any type of passion or is in the bedroom, bro. That's the only time we're going to get it. So for me, that was the time where I always seeked everything. That was how I was weighing my relationship success. Is that okay? I'm getting compassion in these moments. I'm needing compassion because there's so much shit that was going on in my past, but I kept relying on, oh, the partner in the relationship's going to void those out. They're going to
Yeah.
make all that stuff go away. And it's not the
Yeah.
case. You have to handle that yourself. And you can't get into a relationship that then you are so invested in your partner that you lose the identity of yourself. That person becomes part of your self identity, like in
Yeah.
your situation. And then they leave, and then it's crumbling even worse because you're like,
Yeah.
I still don't know what I like. I still don't know what my hobbies are. I don't know what anything I like. I knew what that person liked and what we did and had good together, but
Yeah.
now they're gone. I don't want to do none of those things. So you didn't
Yeah.
lost yourself already right back over again.
Yeah. And again, it comes down to that worthiness, right? Like you say, for majority of men, and I agree, I think most men, they only feel that compassion in the bedroom. And the thing is that people attach their self-worth to that, and that's
Yes.
why for a lot of people, like, it goes both ways. It's that some people who don't get it, they then, end up in these bouts of like depression, anxiety, all these things. Or people that do get it become addicted to it because they that's the only place where they feel as though they get that kind of love, right? That kind of,
Yeah.
like you say, compassion, that kind of care. And although we have our mothers and our families for and I know not everybody does, right? But there is some people out there. I know yourself, you didn't really have that side of things, but for myself, I did. But even then, it's the same thing because it's not the same. It's not the same level of intimacy that you get from
Hmm.
a relationship with a woman, with your wife, right? Whatever, and
Yes.
so again, like I say, for a lot of guys, they attach their self worth to that, and you have to not do that because it will just develop this behavior pattern that leads you to self destruction, and it'll be painful, very very painful. And sometimes I think people have to go through it, because I think it's important to maybe understand what it looks like, right? And to understand, hey, you know what, that's what that looks like. Let me not do that again. But it's that thing of repeating it, right? Like you have to learn and not repeat it. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people don't learn because of the lack of self awareness, and then they end up repeating that same perpetuating cycle, right?
Yeah, and to that too, like it's kind of on point, but a little off as well. But like it's like you were saying, you go and you're trying to find that person to confide in and hoping that's going to be it. But I wanted, because it kind of brought up to me, is that, bro, I'm tired, and this has to stop too. When somebody comes and tells you like, "Hey, I'm alone," or "I don't have nobody," I need somebody. I'm tired of being in this place. We got to stop with the rebuttal of, but you got your kids. That has to be a
Yeah,
stop rebuttal. It has to be, because they think that, well, you're not alone. You got your kids. If what I am dealing with is hard enough for my grown ass to deal with, that I need help from another grown adult, why would I then put that burden and that weight on my child when I, as a grown man, can't handle it? And I'm saying, hey, I'm lonely. I'm alone. I need some help.
yeah,
And your rebuttal's like, you got kids. Go spend time. It's not the same. I need another adult to give me that different type of compassion. I need another adult to have that deeper conversation with somebody to get some understanding. I can't
yeah,
put that weight on my children. I can't go to my children with my adult problems thinking that my kids are going to understand and be there for. I'm
yeah,
I'm fucking them up. I'm giving them trauma because I can't handle my shit. And that was something I always used to tell. I was like, I'm tired of being alone. I'm tired of having nobody, no girlfriend, no
mhm,
friends, no nothing. Everybody's like, but you got kids, you got 7 kids. How are you going? Because that's not the same. Like when I have my hard days, I can't come home and then just vent and stress out to my kids. And my kids are like, well, daddy, do this and do that. It's like, you
yeah.
gotta understand, just because people have kids, they can be lonely as hell as well.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. And you make a really good point there about being a good father and not putting it on your kids. I think that's super important, just a side
Yeah.
note. But yeah, I think people need to, if you want like a step by step process to stop yourself from doing the self sabotage, from damaging your relationships, from damaging your success, from damaging your careers. Number one, communicate, right? And we talk about this all the time. Oh, guys don't have anybody to talk to and everything. It's not just that though. It's communicate with yourself properly, but also communicate with the people around you properly, right? And I'm not talking about like talking about your problems. I'm not saying go to people and be like, hey, I've got these problems. But I'm saying just when you communicate to people, be again kind of aware of how you're talking to them, right? Be aware of the fact that it's like, hey, am I talking to them because I want to be right about this situation, or am I talking to them because I want to help them with something? Am I talking to them because I want help with something, right? Am I looking for sympathy or am I looking for a solution? There's a huge one right there, which is sympathy or solution. This is
Mm-hmm.
something that I was taught, which is the best thing you can do whenever somebody's having a conversation with you and you're not really sure what they want from you. Ask them, are you looking for sympathy or a solution? You know what I mean? Like it saves so many arguments, man. So many arguments. So yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, and I think for anybody out there, apply that to yourself, right? Like before you start a conversation with anybody, figure out, am I just venting for sympathy or am I wanting a solution, right? I've done this actually quite a few times where I'll be like complaining about something on like a Zoom call with like some of my friends and what have you, and I'll just turn around to them and be like, But anyway, I'm just complaining. I was like, I'm just complaining to complain. You know, I mean, like that's it. You know, like I realized like I'm midway through it, and I'm like, look, I'm just complaining to complain. You know, I'm not
So
actually.
it's like I know what I need to do, but I'm still kind of pissed off or whatever. I just need to say this shit, get it off my chest, so I can go do what I need to do. Y'all,
Yeah,
anything you're gonna tell me, I already know I need to go do. Just let me get this off my chest real quick, and I'll
yeah,
go attack
exactly,
this and do what I need to do.
exactly, man, exactly. So, yeah, I think that you know, um, I think people also need to like spot the beliefs that lead to it, right? You know, we're going to talk a little bit about self belief on the next episode.
Hmm.
And so I think, you know, it's a huge proponent of this as well, though. You have to be aware of what do you believe in? You know what I mean? Because if you believe, again, to sort of talk about self worth and deserving it, if you believe that you don't deserve it, then you have to really understand that even if you feel or believe that you don't deserve it, you can still get it, right? And I'm talking about in terms of everything. Success is something that I don't always believe that I deserve. I doubt myself a lot. But what I realized is that, hey, there's people out here who don't deserve it and they have it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not supposed to judge people. Don't get me wrong. I'm not actually supposed to judge anybody. But at the same time, you do look at some people and you think to yourself, well, do they actually deserve what they've got? And if you look and think to yourself, well, if they don't deserve it and yet they have it, then that means that if you feel as though you don't deserve it, you can still have it. You know, and so I think again we're going to talk a little bit more about that on the next episode because that's a huge, huge piece of this is understanding belief. But I think you know if you're going to take anything away from this, I think the best thing you can do as a person is be aware of the fact that self sabotage exists, and you can do it in many, many ways. And ask yourself as often as you can. Ask yourself, hey, am I doing this to better myself? Am I doing this for sympathy? Am I doing this for a solution? Am I what like why am I doing this thing right now? And you know, for instance, that story going right to the back of the start of the podcast, that story of me scrolling through YouTube shorts at 2 a.m., wondering what I'm doing, sat in this very chair thinking to myself, I'm sat like this, I'm scrolling through, you know, like just bored out my mind. And I had to catch myself and just think to myself, if I want to achieve big dreams and goals. Um, I want to become one of the greatest people out there, right? And what I mean by that is in terms of speaking about mental health and entrepreneurship in a new way, right? I
Yeah.
that's what I want to be. I want to be this guy that people can look at and say, hey, this guy talks about the real stuff, like the deep, real stuff, not just this like tip of the iceberg. This is great, you know, like he talks about the underneath, right? I want to be that person and I want to be great at doing that. And watching all these YouTube shorts of just boring stuff that I'm like, my dopamine's fried and everything. I had to think to myself, is this really progressing me to that position? Am I doing this simply because I feel bad about myself? Or do I feel as though I don't deserve it? And at the time, I was having a night where I just was doubting myself a lot. And I thought to myself, okay, but people who don't deserve it can make it. And
Hmm.
so I got on my journal and I just wrote a few paragraphs down and I went, okay, all right, let's go to sleep. And I went to sleep and I woke up the next day and I cracked on, you know, and it felt like a fantastic day. But sometimes you need a bit of catharsis. You know what I mean? You need to like kind of do something, like say, watch these videos and what have you, and entertain yourself for a bit. And then once you've done it and you're feeling like a little bit like, oh, like what have I just wasted my hour doing? Write down how you're feeling, look at it, read it, think about it, and go, okay, I can do better than this. You know what I mean? And I guarantee you'll have a much better day the next day.
Yeah, yeah, no, and bro, to the self worth part too is like a lot of people will sit down too, and they want to make sure that they don't do this. They'll sit down and they're like, "Okay, am I worthy of this? No, I'm not worthy." And then they'll think that they can never become worthy. No, you just got
Mm,
to realize that, like, okay, I'm not worthy right now for this. Why? Why am I
mm,
not worthy? Is it because I have issues? Can I love properly? Do I not love myself? Do I not set boundaries? What is it that I don't deserve it and I'm not worthy of it? Let's go fix that. Let's become worthy because it's no different. Like life, the quote I like to stick in my head is once you learn, you have to learn to work harder on yourself than you do working at your job, right? Than you do working on your job. If you work
yeah,
hard on working on your job, you can make a living, which is good. But if you work on yourself, you can make a fortune, and that's damn good. So you focus on yourself. Okay, I'm not worthy right now. So even if I work, all right, I'm not worthy for a raise right now. Why not? Because I'm coming in late sometimes. I'm not working 100% all the time. Then you do those things and you become worthy. It's no different than any type of relationship that you're ever in. If you're
yeah,
not worthy at that time, it doesn't mean you can't never become worthy. You can. You just got to be honest with yourself, self-identify what's going wrong, fix it and change the routine so you're not self-sabotaging without you even knowing that you're doing it. So work harder on yourself than you're working on your job at the end of the day, and
Yeah.
that's gonna change a lot of things for your life.
Yeah, I definitely, man. I think develop like a self-supporting behavior, right? Something that
Yes.
you do to support yourself. I think gratitude journaling, mindfulness, meditation, prayer. If you're a religious person, pray. Um, what else is a good one? Uh,
Manifestation, meditation,
Manifestation. Yeah,
just
yeah,
putting out good and positive energy out in the world that will
yeah,
return, that will get to your mind thinking that it possibly, because like you're going to get to a point where you're like, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't. You're going to start believing it. So
yeah,
start telling yourself, I can. Let's go do this. Like the
yeah.
small wins, just take those little moments throughout the day to start changing your mentality, because you're not just going to wake up like, all right, I'm changing my mentality. Okay, we'll
Yeah.
just start out. Wait, all right, today I'm going to turn 3 negative thoughts into positive thoughts today. That's all you
Dude,
got to do.
that's great.
Just
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
just small little steps. So just figure out something that's wrong. Hey, I'm late to work, but I could have been in a wreck and headed to the hospital right now. Positive,
yeah,
right? Just even the littlest thing, just to change that. And a lot of people, for like your instance too, is like imposter syndrome is a huge thing. You're getting into something, you feel like you're not supposed to be there. I don't feel like I've learned everything or know everything everybody got. So in that situation, just go get educated more. Go
hmm
study more stuff, learn more stuff. That'll take away from that imposter syndrome where you feel like I'm somewhere I'm not belong because I don't feel like I know all these things. But like
yeah,
David Goggins says, everybody is screwing up and fucking up at life. Some people are just better at showing, like composing it and making you believe that they got it all together, but
yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
don't.
Yeah,
People are just
dude,
better
I love that
at
one. Yeah, absolutely, man. Everyone's world is just as fucked up as everybody else's. It's some people are better at hiding it, you
yes.
know. So I absolutely agree with that, man. Yeah, like I say, self-support behavior, man, is so simple as well. Like, especially in the early days, I think that in the early days, if you're working like a standard job, you've got a wage coming in, you can pay your bills. Like, it's them. There's no better time than that than then. Because when you're in that moment, all you got to do is just spend an hour, 2 hours a day, just writing in a journal. You know what I mean? Like you say, wake up and say, I'm going to change 3 negative thoughts into positive ones. And once you've done it, write it in your journal, and like, it's so very simple to start. And as you get better, as you progress, you just stack them up. You know what I mean? So like, once you've got one thing good, stack it up on another and another and another and another. Before you know it, you've got like 7, 8, 9, 10 good habits in your life, and your life's like becoming way better than what it was. But it's just, like I say, just start small, man. Don't rush. Like, don't rush.
Yeah, bro. And I even tell some people like just start off with when you see a stranger, smile. Just smile.
Mm,
That's a positive change that's going to affect you and the person you see, and you don't have to say no words, because that's
yeah,
what a lot of people's like. I'm social. I don't really like talking with people. Okay, well, when you pass somebody walking by the street, most of us are like nod, whatever. Or nowadays, a lot of people's just looking down, not making eye contact at all. Nowadays,
yeah,
so, but looking, smile, hi, and then continue about your day. We know smiles are
I'll
contagious
do
and that
that.
can change the energy of everything. So just the
Yeah,
smallest things can make a huge difference. If you just do the little small things that you think don't matter, actually do matter. And those are steps
yeah.
to in the right direction.
Yeah, you know what's funny is Jay Waller. I saw a clip of Jay Waller saying that he likes, whenever he sees somebody who's looking good, he'll go up to them and tell them, "Hey, man, you're looking really good today. Thank you." Like, sorry, he'll be like, "Hey, I've forgotten the exact thing," but he basically goes up and says, "Hey, I just wanted to tell you that you're looking really good today. That's it. Appreciate you. Bye bye." And that's it. I walk away. And he's like, "I love doing that." And he's like, I what's the best part is he sits there and says, "I love doing it for selfish reasons because like it makes me feel good." You know what I mean? And
Yes.
and I agree with that. Like, something, and maybe it's just from where I'm from, but we were kind of brought up with this very friendly attitude, right? You always kind of wave to your neighbor. When my grandma and granddad were still around, the kids who were like next door and the kids from the 2 doors down and whatever, they'd all come round at some point during the week to get some sweeties from my nana, right? And like, my grandma would just invite them in the house, like dead warm welcome, everything. And majority of people were always warm and welcome in my grandma's house, and it instilled it into me that, hey, like, just let people like come. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody wants to come in and be like, "Hey, what's up?" Like, say hi to people, smile at people, give them a wave. And even if they don't reciprocate, I guarantee you that they will think about that for like at least 3 quarters of their day. Like, they'll sit there and be
Yes.
like, "That guy, like, this morning, like, I was having such a bad day and he smiled at me." It's like it just means so much.
Bro, yeah, and to that fact that like karma's real too. So you don't know, like, okay, you could have smiled for somebody and something that simple that could have changed their day
Yeah,
and made them really good, feel good. And karma can circle all the way back around. There's a country song which I know you probably don't even know, but and I can't remember what the damn song is right now too off the top of my head. But the whole concept of the song is like, this pregnant waitress was stopped on the side of the road, a flat tire, dude stops, changes
yeah,
the tire for her. And she's like, well, what can I do? Can I give you money? How can I pay? He said, don't pay me back, just pay it forward. Next time you see somebody that's in trouble, pay that
yeah,
forward, right? So, it was an old lady. So it was an old lady on broke down. So he helps the old lady with the car. So then she goes to a diner, and she's at the diner. She sees this pregnant waitress working, busting her ass, this and that. She just gets like a cup of coffee, something simple, but she leaves her
yeah,
$100 tip and then walks out. And then the note on her ticket says, "Hey, don't thank me. Pay it forward when you need to."
yeah.
And then that pregnant lady goes home at night, goes with her husband in the morning. Is like, "Hey, don't worry about bills tomorrow. I made enough today that we're going to be covered." And the man she says that to is the man who stopped and helped her with the car and fixing the tire. So good karma can come circle back
Yeah,
around to you if you
yeah,
just be willing to take the small steps in the beginning. You never know, good
yeah.
or bad. Karma's going to come back and get you, and it's going to be equal.
Straight
So
up.
might as well just put out the good karma.
Straight up, man. Straight up. So yeah, I think again that's a fantastic like like it's a self reciprocating habit. It's something
Yeah.
that will ultimately help you feel better about your life and about your situation, and it'll increase your self worth as well. If you know that you're a good person to people, you feel like, okay, you know what, I do good things for people actually. Like I feel pretty good about myself because I do good things for people, and I do it without expectations. You know what I mean? Like that's the best part, right? Like I say, like that's why those little things I think mean so much more than just like helping your family. Because when a lot of people help their family, deep down they have an expectation, right? Whereas like when you just help like the person working at the coffee shop, you don't really have an expectation. You know what I mean? Like you've helped them with like a tip, and you're like, you know what, that's like a good thing. It's like you have no expectation from them because you don't even know them. And that's why I
Hmm.
think helping a stranger sometimes has more of an effect than helping somebody close to you. So quick story. This is exactly actually what happened to me. I, um, good karma exists, like you say. I went to a coffee shop and I went to sit down and do some work. I got my coffee at the table, and I get a call. I said, I got to go pick up my dad. I was like, oh, okay. So I had to pack everything away quickly, and I had the coffee. And I was like, she was like, hey, do you want to? I'll put it in a takeaway cup for you. I said, perfect, thank you so much. She put it in a takeaway cup, got the takeaway cup, got my laptop, left. Oh my goodness, I didn't pay. And I was already driving to pick up my dad. I was like, oh, right, we got to go back. So I drove all the way there, picked up my dad and went all the way back. I had every intention of paying it. Got there and she goes, oh, don't worry about it. She said, I put it on the pay it forward board. I was like, what? She was like, yeah. She's like, it's paid for. And it was like, yes, it's like a $3 coffee, but still, like, that's a $3 coffee that you've just like let me off with. Like, well, that's, it's
Yeah,
huge.
an act of kindness too is like for you. Okay, the value of that is $3, but something good has happened to me that might have changed my day. Now I'm gonna go pay that forward to somebody else later, and the
Exactly.
value might be higher. That's the good thing about doing good and karma and good faith
Yeah.
tokens is it's never the same value, but it's still the same amount of appreciation for it, right?
Yeah.
Your act might be $3,
100%.
this act might be $100, but the real people are going to be appreciative of it the
Yeah.
same no matter how it costs. So bro, that's a good point, man. That's
Yeah.
dope too. The pay it forward bar, that's dope.
Yeah, dude, it's awesome. It's awesome. Well, listen, man, this has been a fantastic podcast. Like I say, I can't wait for the next one. We're going to talk about self belief. We're going to
Yeah.
talk about basically how you can, what the beliefs that people have about themselves, bad things and good things, and then obviously ways to improve on those beliefs. And so I hope you gained something valuable from this podcast today. Leonard, it's been a pleasure talking to you as always, my friend.
Yes, man. It's lovely, man. I'm looking forward to the next one, man. This self-awareness little trilogy is going to
Yeah,
be amazing.
awesome, man. Awesome. Well, listen, pleasure talking to you. I'll catch you later on. Bye
Yep.
bye.